A post went viral today on the biggest hair loss forum on the internet. The title reads, "Publication concludes finasteride is associated with a 60% risk of persistent sexual dysfunction." 264 upvotes, 166 comments, panic in the replies. And here's the thing, if that number is accurate, then every single one of us on the drug should stop immediately taking it. So let's actually read the study. Before I get into the science, let me acknowledge something. The fear around finasteride and your hormones, around your testosterone, your libido, or your sexual dysfunction is not irrational. It's not a gym bro paranoia. There are real men who have had real experiences they attribute to this drug. And what makes this topic so dangerous is that both sides weaponize it. On one side, you have people who dismiss every concern as nocebo effects on the internet hysteria. On the other side, you have people who share one study with a terrifying headline and leave out everything that matters about how to read it. Neither of those approaches is useful to you. So today I will do what I always try to do. Take you through the actual science, not the summary of a summary of the tweet. Let's start at the foundation because it's where most people's understanding breaks down. Your body produces testosterone. Some of that testosterone gets converted into a much more potent androgen called dihydrotestosterone, DHT. The enzyme responsible for that conversion is called 5-alpha reductase. DHT is the primary driver of androgenetic alopecia. It binds to androgen receptors in genetically susceptible follicles, miniaturizes them, and eventually causes them to stop producing hair entirely. Finasteride works by blocking the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. It essentially puts a lock in the conversion pathway. Less conversion means less DHT. At 1 milligram daily, the hair loss dose, it suppresses DHT by approximately 60 to 70%. Now, here's the part that almost nobody talks about. When you block the conversion pathway, meaning when testosterone can no longer be converted to dihydrotestosterone, the question is, where does the testosterone go? It stays as testosterone. Multiple studies, including one of the largest clinical trials ever conducted on finasteride, the P-less study, which followed over 3,000 men for 4 years, found that finasteride led to a modest but statistically significant increase in serum testosterone compared to placebo. Let me repeat that. The drug that people think is lowering testosterone is, according to the clinical science, slightly raising it. So when somebody says finasteride tanks your testosterone, what's actually happening biologically is the opposite. Your free testosterone is not going down. Your DHT is. I know what some of you are thinking, but DHT is what makes me feel like a man. DHT is what drives libido and energy and strength. And here's where this conversation gets genuinely nuanced, because there is some truth to that concern. DHT is a much more potent androgen than testosterone. It has a higher binding affinity to androgen receptors. And in certain tissues, including brain tissue and genital tissues, DHT does play a role in sexual function and mood. This is why the sexual side effects that some men report on finasteride are biologically plausible. I am not dismissing them. The question is, how common are they? How serious are they? And does the 60% figure that's going around today reflect reality? Let's get into the study. The paper being shared today is a meta-analysis, a pooled review of multiple finasteride studies, published in 2021 in the Journal of Clinical Psychopharmacology by Pompili and colleagues. And I need you to understand how the 60% number was generated. The researchers pooled results from several studies, many of which recruited men who already reported sexual side effects on finasteride. When you build your analysis on a foundation of people who were selected because they experienced side effects, your results can only describe what happens within that group. You cannot extrapolate that on the general group of men taking finasteride. Look at the confidence intervals in their own abstract, 37.3% to 82.9%. A range that wide doesn't tell you a precise risk. It tells you that the underlying data is widely inconsistent. That is not a number you can quote in a Reddit headline as if it meant something concrete. And this is exactly what the moderators of the same Reddit thread explained in the comments. A 60% figure cannot honestly be used to claim finasteride carries a blanket 60% risk of persistent sexual dysfunction. The clinical trial data, gold standard, double-blind, placebo-controlled kind, tells a very different story. Long-term studies showed that drug-related sexual side effects such as decreased libido, erectile dysfunction, and ejaculatory disorders occur in fewer than 2% of men taking 1 mg of finasteride for hair loss. 2%, not 60. Now, before I talk about post-finasteride syndrome, the genuinely real concern here, this feels like exactly the right moment to mention something. If you've been watching this video and thinking, I want the DHT protection of finasteride, but I want also as little systemic exposure as possible, that exact thought is why topical finasteride exists. And it's why I personally use and recommend ULO. Here's the science behind why this matters. When you apply finasteride directly to the scalp, the active drug works locally at the follicle, which is exactly where you need it. Studies showed that topical finasteride reduces DHT effectively, with comparable hair regrowth results to oral. But the key difference is systemic absorption. Researchers found finasteride blood concentrations are more than 100 times lower with topical versus oral, 100 times lower. That means you're getting effective DHT suppression where your hair follicles need it, with a fraction of systemic exposure that drives the fears we've been discussing today. ULO offers topical finasteride that is doctor prescribed, compounded by US-based pharmacy and shipped straight to your door. You can customize your formula, add minoxidil, tretinoin, and even caffeine based on what your specific hair loss pattern needs. That's not a generic supplement brand. That's a proper prescription formulation, tailored to you. The link is in the description below. If this video has you rethinking how you take finasteride, it is worth 5 minutes of your time. Now here's where I want to be completely honest with you, because I think this is important. Post-Finasteride Syndrome is real. There is a small subset of men, and the evidence suggests it is a small subset, who discontinue finasteride and continue experiencing persistent sexual dysfunction, cognitive symptoms, and mood changes long after the drug has left their system. The mechanism isn't fully understood. Current research is exploring whether finasteride causes lasting changes in neurosteroid levels, steroids produced in the brain that regulate mood, cognitive, and sexual function. This is an active area of research, not a settled question. A 2025 study from the UK Biobank, one of the largest genetic and health databases in the world, found that finasteride prescription is not significantly associated with depression or suicide after proper statistical correction. So some of the more extreme claims are not being born out of large population data. What I will tell you is this: the risk of post-finasteride syndrome appears to affect very small population of users, and the 60% figure being passed around today does not represent that risk accurately. Are you on finasteride? Have you had any side effects, or has your experience been smooth? Drop it in the comments. I want to know what's happening in the real world, not just in the studies. So let me land this plane. Number 1, finasteride does not lower testosterone. The clinical data shows it produces a slight increase in serum testosterone. The drug blocks DHT, not testosterone. These are not the same hormone. If your primary concern is that finasteride will tank your testosterone levels, the science does not support that fear. Number 2, sexual side effects are real but rare. Fewer than 2% of men in long-term clinical trials report persistent sexual side effects. This does not mean it can't happen to you. Any medication carries an individual risk. But going in with the impression that you have a 60% chance of persistent sexual dysfunction is not an accurate reflection of the evidence. Number 3, know your own risk profile before you start. If you have a personal or family history of depression, anxiety, or sexual dysfunction, that's a conversation to have with your doctor before starting finasteride. There may be alternatives worth exploring. Topical finasteride, dutasteride at lower doses, or other DHT blockers. They carry different risk profiles for your specific situation. The worst thing you can do is make a decision based on a Reddit headline without understanding what the study actually measured, which is why I made this video. Look, hair loss decisions are hard without bad information making them even harder. My job in this channel has always been to cut through the noise and give you the actual science, even when that science is complicated and uncomfortable. Finasteride is not perfect, no drug is. But a 60% risk of sexual dysfunction, it is not. If this video helped clarify things, share it with someone who is on the fence about starting finasteride. They probably saw the same headline you did. Until next time, I wish you a happy hair journey. Bye.